All right, welcome to The Record. I am Katrina Szish in for Greta Van Susteren. You have been watching President Trump speak while hosting a roundtable at the White House. Now, President Trump made some breaking news. He confirms the United States has seized an oil tanker off the coast of Venezuela. This is just the latest turn in an already tense situation, as the U.S. has been striking suspected narco boats in the region. We'll have more on that in just a moment. The president also addressed inflation and the Federal Reserve, which lowered rates a quarter point today. Stocks did rally after that news, all three major indices closing up for the day. And for more on the state of the economy and the Fed's decision today, Politico economics correspondent Victoria Guida joins me. Victoria, great to see you here. As expected, I think the outlook was it would probably be cut 25 basis points as we saw those interest rates going down. Perhaps not as much as President Trump would have liked. Your reaction?
Yeah, so he actually said today that he could have seen the cut be twice as large as what it actually was. And actually, Stephen Myron, who's on the Fed board and is on unpaid leave from his job at the White House, actually voted for a larger cut. But it looks like actually what the Fed was signaling today is that they're probably not going to cut immediately again.
Again, a lot of people saying, OK, that's great, but it's not enough to help people buy houses, because we know that that has become something that younger people and even older people are not able to break into. We're also hearing a lot about the fact that, OK, it's great if interest rates come down, but that doesn't mean that prices are going to come down. And maybe a lot of Americans thought when President Trump got into office, suddenly things were going to be less expensive. Now, we are, of course, seeing that with gas and with some food prices. But basically, once prices go up, they stay up. And do you agree that what we need to see now is more high-paying jobs instead?
Yeah, so I mean, on housing in particular, I think it's a really tricky problem for the Fed to be able to solve because, for one, they cut short-term interest rates, and that doesn't necessarily lead to lower long-term interest rates. In fact, the Fed had cut a few times last year, a few times this year, and we've seen the 10-year U.S. government debt rate, which is what sort of drives rates on things like mortgages and car loans. We've actually seen that go up over that time. And so, that's causing a problem. I mean, I do think that, to your point about needing good paying jobs, we are in a situation where prices have gone up a ton over the last few years, over the last several years. And so those prices are not going to come back down in general. I mean, things like gas, maybe you can see prices come down, but most prices don't come back down. And so what you need is for wages to outpace prices.
And again, all of this, analysis and all of these economic details, of course, doesn't make the pain feel any better for a lot of Americans. So what would you say more in layman's terms to Americans who are saying, listen, I voted for President Trump. I'm still feeling the pinch. I'm still not able to cover my bills. I'm worried about buying Christmas presents. I'm worried about paying my mortgage or my rent.
Yeah, so there's an open question as to what the administration is going to be doing to try and ease those costs further. I mean, we have seen them back off a little bit, for example, on tariffs on food, because, from what we've seen, grocery prices are some of the things that pinch people the most. I mean, when we talk about affordability, it's everything, but groceries in particular seem to be a pain point for people. And so they're trying to find ways to ease that. Healthcare, there's a big debate going on in Congress about whether to reduce subsidies or find some other way of helping people pay for their health care. So, right now we are seeing prices still go up, but this is a big fight ahead of the midterms. And so we could see a lot more policies rolled out that hopefully will land in a place that will help people.
Yeah, I mean, one of those, of course, is the reduction of taxes, of course, the no tax on tips. President Trump even floated the idea of no income tax for certain Americans based on their income level. Is that something that you think could be some of those policies we see rolled out, to your point?
So that will definitely help for workers that are tipped workers. I mean, I think that one of the potential concerns would be if some of the tax cuts next year lead to an influx in people getting money, which just helps push up prices further. Hopefully that won't happen, and hopefully that some of that relief is much more targeted to people. But it's a difficult situation when you're just trying to address affordability by giving people money. The better way is to address sort of the output of the economy, the productivity of the economy.
Yeah, very interesting. And again, President Trump has said many times that, listen, he needs some time to repair what he inherited from the past administration. And again, we will see if his policies can actually do that. Again, Americans are waiting. Victoria Guida, thank you.
Thank you.
Now back to that breaking news from President Trump on Venezuela. Our White House correspondent Mike Carter is following the very latest. Mike, what have you learned?
Yeah, Katrina, good evening. President Trump announcing last hour the United States has seized an oil tanker off the coast of Venezuela, a country that President Trump has been threatening military action against for the last several months.
As you probably know, we've just seized a tanker on the coast of Venezuela, large tanker, very large. Largest one ever seized, actually.
Well, the U.S. Coast Guard leading the operation to commandeer the oil tanker off the Venezuelan coast. Details, though, on its name and location still remain uncertain at this hour. Today's action by the U.S. comes as the Trump administration has only ramped up threats against Venezuela, deploying considerable military forces to the region, carrying out a series of lethal strikes targeting alleged drug trafficking boats in the Caribbean, while threatening military action, inside Venezuela. Those strikes could be on land. Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro has said that the U.S. is seeking to topple his government and has said that the country's armed forces would resist a military attack from the U.S. Now, oil exports are a key source of revenue for Venezuela. Katrina, the country exporting 900,000 barrels of oil just last month. Katrina?
All right, Mike Carter, thank you so much for the update. Coming up, the battle over health care with just days until Obamacare subsidies expire. Republicans and Democrats, well, they both have plans. We're going to get into that when the record continues. Stay right.
Charlie was the best of America, and the monster who attacked him was attacking our whole country.
Before Charlie Kirk died, he issued a stark warning of terrifying dangers ahead in a new book, Pagan Threat, authored by Pastor Lucas Miles. Charlie said Pagan Threat could save America and that you must read it. Get Pagan Threat free with Newsmax's special offer. Plus, get Dick Morris's new book, The Real Charlie Kirk. 2 great books with our free offer today.
You know, waking up in the hospital from all that stuff, there's got to be some kind of purpose for me here. I need to get over myself and start helping others. Total Towers came in and gave me and my family a home. I've regained quite a bit of independence from that amazing gift they've given me. I can't begin to thank Total Towers for everything they've done for our family. It means so much to us, a life-changing gift. Thank you. Please donate $11 a month at t2t.org.
Is Pilates for you? Well, this is Club Pilates, and we think it's for everybody because that's the point of Pilates, to feel strong and balanced and good. Exactly. Everybody Club Pilates.
For pain in multiple spots like here, here, or here, Salonpas patches stick firmly and remove comfortably once your pain is gone. Salonpas. It's good medicine.
Total Beats Ultimate Heart Health is the newest innovation from America's best-selling Beats brand. Ultimate Heart Health contains a key ingredient clinically shown to deliver 2 times better blood pressure support, plus CoQ10 for even better heart health. Find Total Beats Ultimate Heart Health at Walmart today.
Hi, Leslie, the deal-loving llama here. I just got a great deal on new flooring. Lumber Liquidators has the top brands of flooring from Dream Home Laminate to Bellawood Exotics with the best warranties and at incredible prices, up to 60% less than others. Visit your local store or lumberliquidators.com. Worth a drive.
Welcome back to The Record. I'm Katrina Szish in for Greta Van Susteren. The clock is ticking on Obamacare subsidies that will run out at the end of the month. Now, if not extended, monthly premiums could more than double for subsidized enrollees. About 20 million people are on ACA marketplace plans, with more than 80% receiving subsidies. Both Republicans and Democrats, no surprise, have their own plans on how to go about this. Republicans, well, they want to get rid of enhanced tax credits and instead put that money into health savings accounts. Here's House Majority Leader Steve Scalise.
starting next week, voting in the House on bills that will focus on lowering premiums for 100% of Americans. Let's see where Democrats stand when it's not just giving money to insurance companies and propping up failed Obamacare plans, but actually helping 100% of Americans have better choices and lower health care premiums.
All right, and on the other side, here's what Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer said today about the Democrats' plan.
So, with just days left on the clock, the clearest, cleanest, easiest, and best path left is the bill what Democrats are proposing. A clean extension of current tax credits. That's it. No poison pills, no gimmicks, just relief.
All right, well, now New Jersey Republican Congressman Jeff Van Drew joins me. Congressman Van Drew, always great to see you, and thank you so much for joining us on The Record this evening. I want to first just ask you about the dueling plans, we'll call them. The problem I see with the Democrats' plan, as I'm sure you will agree with, is the fact that simply continuing these Obamacare subsidies is extending benefits for people who shouldn't have those benefits in the first place and only got them during the COVID year. So again, American taxpayers paying for things they shouldn't be paying for.
Look, you make a very good point, and I agree with you. So the real answer is not the Democrat plan, which doesn't reform or change or do anything, just extends it for 3 more years. That's not responsible. At the same time, we need to make sure to help the American people. We need a bridge. For a short period of time, we do need to extend the subsidy with some reforms that we can put together quickly. For example, having caps so that people with huge salaries don't get these benefits because they don't really need them, and a host of others dealing with waste and fraud and abuse. That's what we're doing today. I'm chairing my hearing, which is pointing out all the waste and fraud and abuse that's going on. I don't believe that in this short period of time that we can come up with enough in Congress to make sure that people are kept whole. I don't want people's premiums to double. I don't want them to lose their health insurance. And I don't want to continue with Obamacare forever. There is a midpoint where we can continue it with some reform. For 18 months to 2 years, we could get that done quickly and then really work hard in a good alternative. And when that alternative is done in, say, a year and a half of hard work, replace it completely so the American people don't get hurt. Let me finish saying this. The American people didn't create this horror story. They didn't create this problem. They don't deserve to be punished. They were pushed into Obamacare. Now we have to help them with a bridge to get out of it. But it can't be by just letting the premiums lapse and not helping at all with subsidies. That doesn't work either.
That sounds very practical. And again, I appreciate your candor there. I want to ask you a personal question here. I know that you operated a dental practice for 30 years. You and I have discussed this because my dad is a retired dentist.
Yes,
he had his for 50 years. So I know both of you, of course, have dealt with insurance companies over the years, for better or for worse in perhaps many cases. What can Americans expect next year? Because, of course, the insurance companies, premiums, everything, definitely a hot topic.
Oh, it is a hot topic. So if we don't do anything, and if we just do a few bills at the edges, people are going to have premiums that are going to go up. Some of them aren't going to be able to keep their health insurance. So I don't think that's good enough. And that's why I think we have to extend. Unfortunately, I hate Obamacare, but I think for a short period of time, extend it, work real hard to make it better, and then replace it totally. And we can do that in about a year and a half. So we don't want that to happen to the American people. I want them to be kept whole. Insurance companies, God help us, are making more and more and more money. The money's going to insurance companies and not to help the American people who are paying for all this, and I'm sick and tired of it. And you even saw it in a dental practice, same thing going on.
That's right. Also, I mean, insurance companies a lot of time calling the shots and telling physicians and dentists what they should be doing, even though they're not the experts. All right, we're going to have to leave it there. New Jersey Congressman Jeff Van Drew, I appreciate your practicality and, again, saying, listen, let's take care of the American people, because that's what they hired Congress to do. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
And coming up, President Trump says more U.S. military strikes are on the table. We're going to tell you exactly where when The Record continues.
I am a coach and an alum of Girls on the Run. Kids today carry a lot of stress, from school pressure to social isolation to overuse of devices. We create a space where girls can connect, build confidence, and learn skills like managing emotions, setting goals, and speaking up. Each child's experience is different, and families need support. I'm proud to be part of a comprehensive solution to youth mental health. Get involved today at EmpowerOurFutureCoalition.com.
Hurry in for huge savings going on now at Motorhome Specialist, now with 2 locations. Shop and save on over 1,000 motorhomes, starting at $69,995, only at Motorhome Specialist, the #1 motorhome dealer in the world.
There's nothing worse than losing your dog before their time.
That's why I created Dr. Marty Nature's Blend, designed to help dogs with everything from digestive issues to itching, even moving better.
Nature's Blend works because it's freeze-dried. So instead of destroying the nutrients with high heat, they all get right into your dog's body.
Take it from a veterinarian with over 50 years of experience saving dogs' lives. I have never seen a food make this much impact on a dog's health.
For a limited time, get up to 54% off Dr. Marty Nature's Blend, plus a free gift with our special TV offer. Call or go to drmartypets.com/TV.
Think of all the places that could expose you to identity theft. If something happens, LifeLock provides a dedicated US-based restoration specialist with expertise to make the right calls and take the right steps to fix your case start to finish. In fact, we're so confident restoration is guaranteed or your money back. Don't face identity theft alone. Protect your future and finances with the leader in identity theft protection, LifeLock, for the threats you can't control.
I was tired of sitting on the sidelines. Now, thanks to Jointivia, I'm back in the swing of things. Wait, $70 for a refill?
You gotta try Single Care. Just look up your prescription, show the coupon at the pharmacy, and save.
Really?
Really. Single Care crushes the cost of my prescription, almost as much as I'm crushing Chad.
Unbelievable. See why more people are saving with Single Care. Common side effects include shockingly lower prices, excessive fist bumps, and humbling guys named Chad.
They killed her brother. They shot her dog. And they took her hostage for 400 days and terrifying nights. They raped her. They put guns to her head. They starved her. These are the stories of Israeli women attacked by Hamas. If you are supporting Hamas and radicalized Palestinians, this is what you are supporting. Choose freedom, not terror.
Meet Andrew from the Zebra. Andrew lives and breathes insurance. Andrew stays up all night watching the Zebra find people's savings. You might think nobody could love insurance as much as Andrew, but at the Zebra, everybody's really into savings. The Zebra monitors your insurance and informs you of savings the moment we find it. So you never have to second guess your policy or your price. Nobody does insurance like the Zebra. Find out how much you can save today.
Welcome back to The Record. I'm Katrina Szish in for Greta Van Susteren. Well, President Trump, he is not backing down, saying any country trafficking drugs into the U.S. could face military strikes. Our national security correspondent Carla Babb is in Washington with the very latest. Carla.
Hi, Katrina. As you mentioned, Trump announced earlier today that the U.S. seized an oil tanker off Venezuela's coast. We're still waiting for the reasoning behind that. But this is after opening up the possibility that the U.S. could expand military operations beyond Venezuela to Mexico and Colombia. So would you consider doing something similar with Mexico and Colombia that are even more responsible for fentanyl trafficking into the U.S.?
Sure, I would.
Unlike Venezuela, with its close ties to Russia and a leader who illegitimately held power through rigged elections, Mexico and Colombia are strong U.S. regional allies. Striking Venezuela or other nations in the hemisphere would represent a major break in how the U.S. typically deals with nations it considers hostile, especially those that haven't directly attacked the U.S. or its service members. The Trump administration has come under fire from critics on both sides of the political aisle who question the legality of strikes on suspected drug smuggling boats in the Caribbean, especially after the Washington Post first reported that 2 survivors of the first strike on September 2nd were killed by U.S. forces in a subsequent strike after they were shipwrecked. Secretary of State Marco Rubio and Secretary of War Pete Hegseth briefed lawmakers on Capitol Hill yesterday about the strikes, Hegseth telling lawmakers he is still weighing whether to release the video of the September 2nd strike. The administration maintains that designated narco-terrorists are subject to lethal targeting in accordance with the laws of war. Now, Katrina, here is why the administration is focused on illegal drugs. According to the CDC, drug overdose deaths jumped from 65,000 Americans from January 2016 to 2017, when Trump first took office, to 95,000 American deaths his last year of his first term. That problem stretched to 110,000 deaths per year in 2023, the last year we have complete data from the CDC. About 3/4 of those deaths, Katrina, they're from fentanyl. But fentanyl is mostly transported not by boat in the Caribbean like cocaine is, but over land across the U.S.-Mexico border. That's according to Coast Guard officials. And officials say most fentanyl is produced in Mexico using chemicals supplied by China. Now, the CIA and U.S. law enforcement have long operated south of the border at the discretion of the Mexican government, which approves all capture operations and uses Mexican forces to execute them. Reuters has reported that U.S. military and intelligence officials have in recent months discussed options for carrying out deadly strikes against drug cartels inside the country. But again, Katrina, here we are talking about what would be coordinated efforts with allies, not unilateral strikes without Mexico's consent. Back to you.
All right, Carla Babb, clearly a very large global problem, as you laid out. Thank you so much. And coming up, should the Republican Party be concerned as Democrats continue their successes in special elections around the country? That when the record continues.
Hi, I'm Charlotte McBride. I love working at Newsmax because every day we bring you honest reporting with real conversations, no spin. We're not telling you how to think. We're just giving you the facts and letting you decide what's best for you and your family.
Hello, everyone. It's President Donald J. Trump, and it's Trump time. Check out this red beauty. It's one of my new watches. Wear it proudly on your wrist, and everyone will know exactly what it's for, who it represents. It's really going to be something special. It's for your favorite president. Get your watch today at gettrumpwatches.com. Please make a great gift. It's Trump time.
Hi, I'm Ben Cozy. Isn't holiday travel a pain in the neck? You're cramped, uncomfortable, and forget about getting any rest. There's nothing cozy about airplane seats or hard plastic benches, and those so-called travel pillows, they just don't cut it. You don't need another travel pillow. You need Be Cozy, the world's most comfortable neck pillow. Trapped in the middle seat? Wrap Be Cozy around your neck to stop chin drop, bobblehead napping. Smashed up against the window? Fold Be Cozy over and tuck it onto your shoulder for super side support. Frequent flyer miles got you sitting aisle? Turn Be Cozy to the side for the perfect pillow position. Hey, everyone wants to be cozy, so get the world's most comfortable travel neck pillow and be cozy like me, Ben Cozy. You get to be cozy. Everyone gets a Be Cozy. Only Be Cozy has patented overlapping arms so you get double support and the comfort you need in any seat on any trip. Go online right now and get this special holiday offer. Buy one Be Cozy, get one 50% off. So don't wait. Get yours now.
There are only a few men I'd trust with my life. Two of them built this wallet. I've known the guys behind Proof for nearly 20 years, and we've been through hell and back together. When they told me they were building the wallet, I just said, bill me now, I'm in. This isn't some fashion piece. This isn't just some trend. These wallets are a direct reflection of the kind of men who built it. It's built to last, built to function, and designed to carry everything you need and more. If anything happens to it, they'll take care of it. No questions, no fine print. If you knew the guys who created this wallet, you wouldn't carry anything else. Go check them out, because they built this thing right.
You woke up with a sore throat and a low-grade fever. You know you are getting sick, so here's your choices. You can get sicker and miss work, try to see a doctor this week, or sit hours in a crowded waiting room at urgent care.
I have a smarter option for you. Open your medical emergency kit. Match your symptoms to doctor-recommended prescription in your booklet and take the right meds now and get well faster.
This is not a first aid kit. It's like having an urgent care in your home. It includes doctor-prescribed medications to treat over 39 medical issues like respiratory infections, strep throat, pneumonia, UTIs, and more.
No waiting to see the doctor and no standing in line at the pharmacy. It's right here.
Every home should have at least one medical emergency kit, and here's how to order.
Order online and save $45. Your kit to treat dozens of common and serious illnesses is rushed to your door. Visit urgentcarekit.com/news, promo code NEWS. That's urgentcarekit.com/news, promo code NEWS.
Nearly home.
Whodunit?
We're looking for a house closer to everything, but we don't know where to start.
Find it with Realtor.com. With Real Commute, it's easy to find a home closer to what's ever close to your heart. Do y'all recycle? Realtor.com.
All right, welcome back. Big news for the Democrats. First in Miami, Democrat Eileen Higgins. She won the Miami mayoral race, defeating Republican Emilio Gonzalez. Gonzalez was endorsed by President Donald Trump. Now, Higgins is the first female mayor to represent Miami. And on top of that, she is the first Democrat in nearly 30 years to be elected mayor of the city. After Higgins won, here's what she said.
I really am profoundly honored to stand here today as your next mayor. We will confront the affordability crisis with the urgency Miami's families need. And above all, we will lead a city that belongs to everyone. A city where seniors can stay, young people can build a future, immigrants feel welcomed and respected.
And now we go to Georgia. Democrat Eric Gisler pulled an upset victory in a special election in an historically Republican House district. Gisler defeated Republican Mac Dutch Guest. All right, let's get into it. CPAC Chairman Matt Schlapp joins me, along with former Special Assistant to President Biden and former Press Secretary to the First Lady, Michael LaRosa. Gentlemen, thanks so much for joining me on the record tonight. Matt, I'm going to start with you here. We've seen the Democrats having momentum, despite the fact that they're often described as a party in flux, a party with no identity. To what do you attribute this success?
Well, I think most of the areas, maybe not all, but most of these areas where they had victories are blue areas. The mayor of New York City, the state of Virginia, the Commonwealth of Virginia, New Jersey. You know, Miami, Florida has trended much more Republican, and Miami is more Republican than most of our big cities, but it's still a big city in many ways, our biggest and most important city in America. And even the Republicans who have won, weren't that partisan. They were very much in the middle. I know Emilio Gonzalez well. He's a good man. I served with him in the Bush administration. I think even he would admit he's not really a politician. He's a policy expert. And rough and tumble politics of Miami is a very unique thing. Francis Suarez, who I just talked with while he was in D.C. a few days ago, was a very unique politician. He got a lot of criticism from conservatives for being too far off on the other side sometimes. So Republicans need to take a breath. It's going to be okay. We won the special election that mattered recently for the House of Representatives. And if the economy keeps improving, we're going to do just fine in the midterms.
All right. Again, though, Matt, of course, we didn't mention the Georgia special election, which, of course, that is an area that is traditionally Republican. So, Michael, I'll pass it over to you here. Kind of similar question. To what do you credit the Democrats' wins? Because a lot of times people say these candidates are not even good, but maybe, not all of them, but a lot of them. And some people may just be sending a message that they haven't been happy with the Trump administration.
Yeah, I think, the economy probably has a lot to do with it. If you read the Wall Street Journal all week, they've been putting out reports. The consumer sentiment is way down. CEOs are kind of warning consumers. This is costs are going to go up, especially after Christmas. This is going to get bad. China has had a manufacturing boom, but our country is paying the cost of this tariff trade war.
But Michael,
and the one thing that
Michael,
people
I'm just going to interrupt you there.
President...
Michael, I'm going to interrupt you there just for a second, though. And again, this is, what, of course, President Trump has been saying, but also this. You and I have talked about this before, that the Biden administration and their economy and a lot of their policies kind of got us to where we are now, or did get us to where we are now. And as much as we all want instant gratification, it's tough to turn around the Titanic, so to speak, if it hits an iceberg.
Trust me, we were saying the same thing in those first couple of months of 2021 when we inherited the broken country that we found at our doorstep after COVID. But I would say there's a recent CBS poll, and the problem with the argument, Katrina, is that if he had just taken the economy he inherited, President Trump, and not started an international trade war, he might be able to get away with that. But according to the latest CBS poll, voters see him as part of the problem when they think of the economy, that they feel like he's not doing enough to relieve voters and consumers of the economic trends. They see him as part of the problem and not doing much to solve the problem.
Michael, I'm going to bring Matt in here because I know he has a lot that he wants to respond to about what you've saying. Of course, we know, Matt, President Trump talking a lot about affordability. That's a buzzword here on both sides. We also saw him in Pennsylvania yesterday talking also about reduction and help when it comes to taxes and a lot of things that he has done. Gas prices down and a lot of things he still has planned. And I know you have a few words to say, I'm sure, about what he inherited.
Yes. So let's take the tariffs. Most of the costs of the tariffs are not being pushed onto consumers. The government is showing that. Private economic analyses are showing that.
Now bailing out for $12 billion.
The tariffs, in fact, have even resulted in a lot of revenues to the government. The problem with prices was a problem that was exacerbated by Joe Biden's super juicing of the economy, and Donald Trump and Secretary Bessent and others have adroitly got our economy to a position where the inflation is low. And with the big, beautiful bill, which prevented the Democrats from raising our taxes to a record level, they also instituted a lot of these executive orders and regulatory reform. This is trillions of dollars of impact on the economy. The problem with regulation reform is that it trickles into the economy, it flows into the economy over time. So what we're going to see over the course of this year leading up to the midterm elections is inflation staying in check, and our economy continue to grow, people feeling more confidence about the economy. But the Joe Biden inflation that racked this country and was made worse by his overspending, they're still feeling the pinch of that. Over time, that will be improved because President Trump is doing exactly the opposite of what Joe Biden to make things worse. And the Democrat solution is a government program to make things more affordable. We saw that with Obamacare. It never works.
Yeah, I think, I think there's truth in what you're both saying. I think obviously what this administration inherited from the last takes a little while to turn around. But also, Michael, I hear you. Hang on a second, Michael. I hear you, though.
It pales in comparison to 500,000 people dead. And 200 million people to vaccinate.
I'm not going to go there. Not going to go there. But I will say I understand that Americans are frustrated
still not vaccinated,
because they
Michael.
want. And he's still with us. All right. I'm going to leave it there. Gentlemen, I hope we can pick this up another time. Matt Schlapp, Michael LaRosa. Thank you. And up next, a new lawsuit alleges American parts were used in Russian weapons used to kill Ukrainian civilians. That when the record continues. Stay with us.
Elmer Heinrich here. I'm in the mineral and nutritional supplement business, and I'm here to tell you that there's hundreds of nutritional supplements on the market, but very few have more than 8 or 9 minerals. Now, you might consider Immuno 150. This incredible product has 70 plant-derived minerals and 80 other nutrients. Now, minerals are the most important of all nutrients, but due to topsoil mineral depletion, our present-day foods have 70% fewer minerals than many years ago. I believe the world is sick due to a lack of mineral in our food, so think about Immuno 150. There's nothing like it, and I mean nothing. Now, 70 minerals can do wonders to improve your health. Look at the videos on our website and consider placing an order for Immuno 150 online or call our toll-free number. See what 70 minerals and 80 of the best nutrients can do for you. Like thousands of others, you won't believe the results. Order now.
Everyone loves to find surprising presents under the tree.
I love him.
And WeatherTech gifts are always special too. Vehicles are protected with laser measured floor liners for the front and middle, plus a cargo liner for the rear, and seat protector for furry messes. And with the pet feeding system, he'll eat safely his entire life. Add a cup phone to make sure the phone is secure while driving. Find these American-made gifts or get a gift card instantly at WT.com.
Hi, I'm Wade Allen Root, the national TV and radio host known as the MAGA warrior and the capitalist evangelist. This presidency is ushering in the golden age of prosperity, and it's all built around making America the energy capital of the world. Enter Lost Soldier Oil and Gas. It took 40 years to piece together this 40,000-acre giant gas discovery. It's estimated to contain up to 6 trillion cubic feet of gas, with a management forecast projecting the first 25 wells alone to produce 400 million cubic feet per day of natural gas. This is how we power the AI future of America with clean natural gas. Headed by oil and gas legend Mark Bruner, whose previous public companies delivered spectacular returns for investors at their peaks. Pedico Energy grew about 100 to 1 for investors. Ultra Petroleum grew about 1,000 to 1 for investors. To learn more about Lost Soldier Oil and Gas, scan the QR code on the screen or go to lostsoldier.com. That's lostsoldier.com.
The buy one, get one free sale has been extended at Cabinets to Go. Come in today and shop our huge selection of quality cabinets in the latest styles and colors you'll love. And here's the best part. Our expert designers will help you bring your dream kitchen to life with a free 3D design. It's never been easier or more affordable to upgrade your space. Visit CabinetsToGo.com to find the showroom near you. But hurry, these deals won't last long. Cabinets to Go, designed to wow.
Welcome back to The Record. I'm Katrina Szish in for Greta Van Susteren. Now to a story that Newsmax exclusively reported. Intel, AMD, and Texas Instruments are being sued for allegedly failing to prevent their technology from ending up in Russian weapons. The lawsuit was filed on behalf of Ukrainian victims. Now, the suit also comes as Russia's war in Ukraine enters its 4th year after Russia launched its full-scale invasion on February 24th, 2022. Foreign Affairs correspondent Alex Salvi joins us now with the very latest on the lawsuit. Alex.
Yeah, Katrina, Newsmax was the first to report on this new complaint that was unveiled here in Washington today, alleging that American-made technology is being found on Russian and Iranian missiles and drones that are targeting Ukrainian civilians. Now, the lawsuit filed in Texas state court today on behalf of people killed and injured in those attacks claim that U.S. companies are circumventing sanctions and illegally exporting chip technology. It cites multiple investigations and news reports that confirm that American-made components have been recovered in weapons on the battlefield. The complaint, filed against Texas Instruments, AMD, Intel, and Mauser, claimed to present evidence showing how chips, processors, and navigation systems, all manufactured in the United States, are being found inside of Russian weapons and systems. The attorneys argue that the findings underscore a systemic failure to protect restricted technologies from falling into enemy hands.
These defendants' components are on these weapons that are being used to wage war against these civilians who are the plaintiffs in these 5 cases. These defendants knew that this diversion of their products was going on, and yet they have done nothing to stop it.
Now, Ukraine has publicly voiced these concerns in the past, actually, hoping to force the United States and other allies to enact stricter export controls. You may remember back in April, President Vladimir Zelensky claimed that a Russian ballistic missile that hit a residential building in Kyiv, killing 12 people, contained 116 foreign components, with most coming from the United States. Now, lawyers in this suit say they will detail an elaborate process using shell companies and diversion networks that were used to allow Russia to purchase American-made equipment. Now, one of the defendants, Katrina Mauser Electronics, has since responded to the complaint in a statement to Newsmax saying, quote, "We deeply respect the legal process and will respond to this matter in court versus the media." So we're waiting for that, Katrina.
All right, Alex Salvi, thank you so much for that exclusive report. All right, and now from one failed technology to another, it is time for our outrage of the day. All right, this is a sad one. All right, sperm from a donor who unknowingly carried a cancer-causing gene was used to conceive nearly 200 babies across Europe. This is according to an investigation by 14 European public service broadcasters. Now, some of the children who were conceived using the sperm have already died from cancer, and according to geneticists, the majority of the children who inherit the gene will at some point develop cancer, though it is unclear how many kids have inherited the gene. Back in 2005, the unidentified man, he passed a screening check, all of them, before he donated. His sperm has been sold by the European Sperm Bank in Denmark to 67 fertility clinics in 14 countries. Really sad story there. All right. Coming up, not all heroes wear capes. Some carry dogs in backpacks. That when the record continues.
It's
It's the Blue Compass RV annual Blue Tag clearance. Save over 40% on select new RVs during our largest sale of the year. Plus, every RV comes with a 1-year VIP membership to RV Complete, a $5,000 value. Visit us online or in store today.
Joining us is Dr. Drew from the Wellness Company with advice for dealing with seasonal colds and flu. Doctor?
Cold and flu season is here, and every year you or a loved one gets sick. Your doctor can't see you. Waiting in a crowded urgent care is brutal. This is a particularly bad cold and flu season, and it's why doctors suggest every family needs an emergency medical kit. Your medical emergency kit is filled with essential prescriptions. It includes antibiotics like generic Z-Pak to get well faster, amoxicillin for pneumonia, strep throat, ear infections, plus prescriptions for nausea and UTIs, and even ivermectin. It's easy. Just match your symptoms to the prescription in your guidebook or call the telemedicine doctor standing by. Take your medication early and feel better faster. Having a medical emergency kit is like having an urgent care in your home. No waiting to see a doctor, no lines at the pharmacy.
Smart advice. We've shared the website and discount code below to save viewers $45. Order now and your kit will be rushed to your door. Thank you, doctor.
They killed her brother. They shot her dog. And they took her hostage for 400 days and terrifying nights. They raped her. They put guns to her head. They starved her. These are the stories of Israeli women attacked by Hamas. If you are supporting Hamas and radicalized Palestinians, this is what you are supporting. Choose freedom, not terror.
You're careful about what you bring home when shopping, especially when it comes to feeding your family. Shouldn't your investments work the same way? At Timothy Plan, we offer a wide selection of mutual funds and ETFs that can help you allocate assets without compromising your values. From technology to healthcare, energy to real estate, our funds are not only diverse but uncompromising to your values. Timothy Plan funds are filtered to avoid companies involved in abortion, pornography, human trafficking, and other harmful agendas. What you invest in should reflect what you stand for. Are your investments bearing good fruit? What's in your portfolio? Contact your financial advisor today to find out, or contact Timothy Plan directly at 1-800-TIM-PLAN to discover more. Before investing, carefully consider the fund's investment objectives, risks, charges, and expenses of the investment company. This and other important information can be found in the fund's prospectus. To obtain a copy, visit timothyplan.com or call 800-846-7526. Read each prospectus carefully before investing. Investing involves risk, including the potential loss of principal.
From the beginning, America has depended on the courage and resilience of those who serve in our armed forces. For 250 years, they've been there for us without fail, putting their lives on the line, defending our freedom, helping us become the nation we are today. At Wounded Warrior Project, our mission honors the past by building a better future for post-9/11 veterans, service members, and their families. Our life-changing programs and services help warriors improve their mental and physical health, access the VA benefits they've earned, and connect with their communities, their purpose, and each other. Warriors have given us their best. Join us in supporting them through the next 250 years of strength, resilience, and recovery. Visit woundedwarriorproject.org/USA250.